I never imagined a poor popcorn girl would capture the heart of a millionaire CEO. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The air was thick with the scent of butter and sugar, filling every corner of the crowded fairgrounds. My hands trembled slightly as I poured the last of the popcorn into a crinkled bag. I was drowning in a sea of colorful lights and laughter, yet my pulse raced with anxiety. The world outside my little popcorn stand felt so far away that my name is Lily. Each day was a battle. I worked tirelessly, battling bruising shifts just to help my younger brother, Danny, stay afloat. Our small apartment smelled of mildew, and we fought over the last slice of bread. But I loved him fiercely, and that love fueled my every effort. Just then, my eyes fell on him, a man in a sharp suit, brushing through the crowd like a shadow. Finn Parker, the CEO everyone whispered about, with chiseled features and deep-set eyes that pierced right through me. I'd heard tales of his wealth, diamonds, cars, parties that stretched long into the night. But he didn't belong here, at this fair, surrounded by the chaos of my reality. Curiosity electrified the air. What is he doing? I wondered. Was he just passing by? Or was fate spinning its web around us? I could feel the whispers of spectators, their glances darting from him to me. Disbelief etched on their faces. Poor popcorn girl, rich CEO. It didn't make sense. Each heart-stopping moment was like a ticking clock. I stole glances at Finn. Somehow, beneath the polished surface, I sensed a storm brewing. The way his jaw tightened as he glanced at the people passing by, the flickers of discomfort flashing across his expression. There was more to him than just wealth. And when our eyes met, that breathless moment. My stomach dropped as if the ground shifted beneath me. His gaze held a spark, an inexplicable connection. My heart raced. Could I be imagining this? People around us melted away. The laughter, the music, it all faded. I felt the vibrant colors bleed into shadows and time stretched thin. I quaked inside, a mixture of exhilaration and fear. What if I reached out? What if he stepped closer? The space between us felt charged, like there was something electric just waiting to ignite. But just then, a loud crash shattered the moment. A rusted Ferris wheel creaked ominously, and gasps erupted from the crowd. Chaos unfolded in seconds. Lights exploded like fireworks, screams pierced the air, and in an instant, everything spun out of control. My heart raced as people began to flee. I was paralyzed in fear, my breath caught in my throat, pounding against my chest. Finn's eyes widened, and he leaped toward me, his hand reaching out. But in the sea of panic, moments stretched beyond reason. So close yet, so far. The question hung silently in the air. Would he save me from this spiraling chaos? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The cacophony of chaos enveloped me, a stark contrast to the moment I had just had with Finn. The screams of frightened children mixed with the frantic calls of their parents, and I felt a surge of urgency clawing at me. Fear wrapped around my heart like a vice. Yet through the haze, I could still see Finn pushing through the frantic crowd, focused as if there were only one thing in his sights, me. Lily, he shouted, his voice rising above the din. It sliced through the chaos, wrapping itself around my racing heart. His outstretched hand reached for me, an instinct kicked in. I ran toward him, desperate to close the gap, my legs pumping harder than they ever had in my life. But just as I neared him, the sounds of the world around me warped into a distant echo. A loud crack resonated, sending shockwaves through the air. I stumbled, my foot catching on a broken cobblestone, my world tilting as I fell. Finn's expression turned from determination to horror as he lunged forward, but in a single heartbreaking heartbeat, the distance expanded again. In the chaos, I caught a glimpse of the Ferris wheel, compromised and swaying dangerously. My instincts screamed to stay down, but Finn was right there, so close, and I couldn't let fear claim me. I scrambled back to my feet, but as I did, Droplets of something warm splattered across my cheek, a firework gone rogue, or a malfunctioning ride. I couldn't process. Panic seized me. I jerked away, my heart pounding as I braced for the worst. "Stay with me," Finn called out, rushing toward me as debris rained down. He gripped my arm tightly, his warmth radiating through the fear that consumed me. In that moment, I wasn't just a poor popcorn girl anymore. I was someone he cared enough about to risk everything for. The authorities arrived, but the scene was still chaotic, the smell of smoke mingling with the sweetness of cotton candy swirling like a cruel joke. We were both thrust into frantic energy, faces blurring as Finn and I squeezed through the throng of bodies. I caught glimpses of concerned expressions, horror reflected in their wide eyes. And yet, in the midst of this madness, Finn turned to me, a shred of calm unwavering in his gaze. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, although my insides churned. "I'm fine, I think." Help arrived, medics, police, and orders were shouted, but it was Finn's hand anchoring me that kept the tides of panic at bay. With every stride he took, I felt his determination seep into me, forging a bond born not of wealth, but of resilience and fearlessness. But before I could process it all, a flicker of the familiar caught my attention. "Danny." My heart lurched as he appeared, wide-eyed with fear, just outside the cordoned-off area. I hadn't even thought of him in the chaos. "Lily," he screamed, his small frame trembling as he stood frozen. The world crashed down around me in slow motion. I felt my breath hitch, despair wrapping its fingers around my throat. How could I protect him? He shouldn't have been here. "Danny," I shouted back, my heart clanging like a cymbal. Finn noticed, inciting a swift protective instinct as he turned to face the turmoil ahead. "Stay close," Finn urged, but even as he held on to me, I could feel the current of panic getting stronger in that heart-stopping moment. Another loud crack echoed, reverberating ominously through the air. My world turned into a kaleidoscope of fear as the Ferris wheel suddenly collapsed. I pulled away from Finn instinctively and dashed toward Danny, fear propelling me forward just as precariously. "No." Finn's voice rang out, heavier with urgency. But there was no stopping me as I reached Danny, scooping him into a fierce embrace filled with the depth of my love and the weight of all my worries. We clung together as the surroundings erupted in madness. Finn's presence loomed just behind us, a stark reminder of the safety I might have found had everything not spiraled so fiercely. Even in that moment, knowing he was there gave me the strength I needed. Then, through the chaos, amidst the rubble, a voice pierced through the unmistakable sound of a response team addressing the situation. "Everyone beneath the bridge, clear out. It's not safe." Hope flickered briefly, but as I pulled Danny closer, I felt a pang of loss deep within my chest. This wasn't just about our immediate survival. It was the underlying truth of our lives, a fight for something better that always felt just out of reach. Finn stood valiantly, slicing through the chaos to reach us. But in that frantic moment, the world began to tilt and shift again. A police officer, battling through the rubble, suddenly turned, recognition dawning on her face as her eyes met mine. My breath caught in my throat as disbelief spread through me. "Lily?" she called, her voice trembling. "Is that you?" The chaos around us faded, just enough for her words to hang in the air, heavy with meaning. "Follow me," she urged desperately, urgency igniting her voice. And just then, with the world collapsing in on itself, I felt the sharp edge of destiny. The whisper from my past, the life I had run from, the secrets I had buried echoed through me. Time paused as I realized this moment could team me up with danger in ways I never anticipated. But as I looked at Finn, our eyes connecting for a final heartbeat, I felt uncertainty and hope collide, a storm of emotion crashing through the remains of everything I thought I knew. While the world threatened to tumble down around us, the cliff of revelation loomed ever closer. What awaited us on the other side? With the officer's voice still echoing in my ears, I found myself at a crossroads I never anticipated. The fear in my chest surged, blurring my vision. I blinked hard, struggling to comprehend the importance of that moment. This was not just about the chaos that surrounded us. It was about decisions that could alter the very fabric of my life. "Danny, we have to go," I urged, tightening my grip around his shoulders. My eyes darted between Finn and the officer, thumping heartache warring against a flicker of potential safety. Please, stay close. Finn stood frozen, his expression caught between uncertainty and fierce determination. We can't leave each other, Lily, he shouted over the chaos. But my instinct was pulling all my attention toward the officer beckoning me forward, stepping into the shadows of uncertain safety. Now, the officer repeated, waving toward a narrow gap behind the cordoned area, an exit from the nightmare unfolding around us. I wanted to scream at Finn not to let go, to allow us to face this madness together. But the facade of the world around us was crumbling. My resolve needed to take over. I turned back to Danny, grounding myself in his fearful gaze. Can you do something for me? He nodded shakily. Anything. I swallowed my fear, forcing on a brave face. Hold my hand, just like we practiced. I reached down, entwining my fingers with his. With Danny at my side, I cast one last glance at Finn, whose face was wrought with anxiety. We'll catch back up, I promised, even though my heart knew it was a lie. Before Finn could respond, the officer began to propel us forward, toward the safety of the impending exit. We ducked past the barricades, the sounds of panic fading slightly as we pressed farther away from the chaos. The warmth of Danny's tiny hand in mine was my anchor through the shifting tides of fear. With every hurried step, I felt the weight of Finn's unspoken words cling to me like the lingering scent of popcorn. I stole one last glance back, searching for Finn amidst the swirling dust and debris, my gut twisting at the thought of leaving him behind. The crowd's screams mixed with the whirl of flashing lights and chaos as emergency responders moved swiftly, each second feeling like an eternity. Lily, Finn's voice hung in the air, comically distant, yet laced with something heavier, something unexpressed. It pulled at me a tether I couldn't sever. But the officer kept pushing us forward, and soon, Finn was just another blur in the whirlwind of fear. With Danny held tightly in my grip, we made it through to the other side of the barricade. But the relief was fleeting, overshadowed by the ominous tension rising in my chest. I turned to thank the officer, who still held a watchful eye on the chaos behind us. We need to, I began, but something in her expression cut through my words. Lily, there's no time for explanations. You need to come with me, she insisted, her tone brokering no argument. The urgency radiating from her felt like electricity. I didn't know this woman, but there was an intensity in her gaze. She knew something. She had answers I desperately needed. Why? I asked, a defiant tremor to my voice. What do you know? Her posture shifted, subtle but decisive. Trust me, it's not safe to stay. You're not out of the woods yet. There are things you'll want to avoid to protect him. She gestured toward Danny, who clung to my side, wide-eyed and trembling. Who are you? My heart pounded in my ears, suspicion rushing to the forefront. My instincts warned me to be careful, but the remnants of the chaos still resonated inside me, feeling too close to reality to ignore. I'm a friend, someone who can help, she insisted, and I could have sworn a momentary flicker of something passed across her face. But the longer we stand here, the more danger you're in. Just as fear danced along the edge of my resolve, I felt a reassuring pressure against my hand. Danny's grip was steady. He hadn't let go. He was trusting me to lead him through this horror. The innocent love and protection swirling in his gaze urged me to make a choice. That I searched the horizon, where remnants of joy had once resided, and saw familiar faces through the smoke. But amongst them, I noticed one missing. There was still no sign of Finn. What about him? I asked, my voice cracking. Finn. I can't leave without him. There is no time, she insisted, frustration etched in her voice. You can't save everyone, Lily. You have to prioritize. But as her words echoed within me, I felt a flicker of betrayal. With every fiber of my being, I knew I had to try for Finn. I tore my gaze away from the officer and searched the chaos once more, the echoes of screams bleeding into the canvas of desperation. Then, I caught sight of him. Finn was wading through the crowd, his eyes scanning for me. Determination etched into his every move. Relief washed over me, mingled with an overwhelming surge of hope. Danny, hold on tight, I commanded, letting instinct guide the way. Without another thought, I spun around, ripping my hand from the officer's grasp. I'm not leaving him behind. I dashed back toward the madness, the burning need to protect the people I loved propelling me through the chaos like a beacon. The officer's cries followed me, but they dissolved behind the din of clashing emotions and heartbeats. With every step, I felt the weight of uncertainty in my chest, but what gnawed deeper were the relentless thoughts of loss and courage. As I pushed back toward Finn, desperation surged within me like wildfire, igniting a path through the smoke and fear. "Finn!" I shouted, catching his gaze, and in that moment, I thought I saw him smile as he ran toward me, relief flooding his features. But just as I reached him, something sharp whistled through the air. Before I could react, there was a sudden flash of pain that knocked the breath from my lungs, the ground tilting beneath my feet. A piercing sound consumed the world around me, drowning out everything until the darkness rushed to claim me. And in the haze of sensation that followed, all I could feel was void, my last thoughts spiraling around the faces of those I loved, as if they were miles away. As the chaos dimmed, I realized just how fragile my hold on hope had been, dangling on the edge of the precipice, a cliff not just of revelation, but of destiny. My consciousness flickered like a candle in a storm, teetering between the tangible world and the beckoning realm of oblivion. I could feel the texture of the asphalt against my cheek, a harsh contrast to the warmth that once enveloped me. And then there was the sound, muffled yet persistent, like the distant echo of a heart beating in panic. Soft hands cradled my face, pulling me back from the edge where shadows danced enticingly. "Lily, stay with me." Finn's voice was shaking, slicing through the haze. His presence brought warmth, a tether reeling me back to reality. But the cold knot of fear still clutched my heart. "Finn." I blinked, forcing my weary eyelids open. The world swam into focus, the chaos around us now a painted canvas of blurred faces and bright flashing lights. I could just make out the officer's silhouette hovering like a guardian alongside Danny, who trembled a few feet away, clutching his stuffed dinosaur as if it would serve as a shield. "Please, Lily, don't leave me," Finn pleaded, his voice cracking. "You have to get up." With his earnest plea puncturing the remnants of pain, I pushed against the weight of my body, struggling to rise. I could see concern etched across his face, raw and unfiltered. "Danny," I breathed, searching for the small boy in the overwhelming swell of emotions that threatened to drown me. "He's right here," Finn assured, tightening the grip he had on my arm, his strength anchoring me. "You're okay, you got hit, but we're safe now, at least for a moment." My head spun as the fog of confusion began to lift, and I leaned into Finn's touch. There was no time for fear. I needed to focus, to protect. "We have to find Danny," I managed, still feeling the adrenaline thrumming beneath my skin. "Lily," the officer's voice sliced through the chaos. "We have to move. They're evacuating this area." Instantly, I perked at the word evacuate, panic bleeding into my core. What had happened? What danger still haunted our steps? "Wait, is it safe? What about the others?" "Lily, listen to me." The officer's expression was a mixture of urgency and dread as she stepped closer. "The situation is escalating. You must trust me if you want to get out of this alive together." I wanted to ask what she meant, but fear constricted my throat. My heart ached, torn between the myriad questions swirling in my mind and the omnipresent worry for Danny. But I felt his presence again, small hands tugging at my jacket, his wide eyes searching mine. "I'm okay, Lily," he whimpered. "Don't worry." The reassurance of his voice filled me with small, flickering hope, yet every moment felt precious and fleeting. The officer turned her head, glancing back toward the shadows beyond the barricades, urgency washing over her features. "We can't hesitate. Follow me, and don't look back." Against all my instincts, I nodded, propelled by a mix of fear for what lay ahead and love for those I needed to protect. I reached for Danny's hand, intertwining my fingers with his as I anchored myself in the present moment. "Let us go," I urged, setting my eyes on Finn, whose own gaze was unwavering. Together, we forged ahead, hearts synchronized in the midst of growing uncertainty. We picked our way through debris and fractured asphalt, the wailing sirens a distant reminder of the chaos from which we had emerged. As we neared the edge of the scene, a glimmer of orange caught my eye, a flickering glow pulsing amid a patch of ash and destruction. It was a single, unbroken popcorn kernel laying there, untouched despite the disaster unfolding around us. For a moment, it stood alone in defiance against the odds, reminding me of the joy we had tasted earlier amidst laughter and celebration. "Look," I pointed to the Colonel, and Danny's eyes lit up with recognition. "Popcorn, just like earlier. Remember?" Finn's brow creased, a small spark of amusement breaking through the fear plastered on his features. "You're right. The popcorn," he echoed, the corners of his mouth lifting slightly. Danny bent down to retrieve it, cradling the Colonel in his palm as if it were the most precious jewel in the world. The action seemed incongruous against the backdrop of turmoil, yet within the absurdity was a fleeting moment where innocence and hope intertwined. But the moment was short-lived as an explosion rang out in the distance, a distant thunder that reverberated through my bones. The ground shook beneath us, an instinct kicked in, demanding that we move faster. "We have to go?" I urged again, the Colonel slipping from Danny's fingers as we surged forward, propelled by a tide that pulled us toward the unknown. My heart thundered, plummeting down with each frantic footfall. With every breath, the speed of our escape quickened, bringing with it the weight of realizations I hadn't yet faced. Each of us staggered under our own fears, our own shadows, yet united in the need for survival. As we emerged beyond the immediate chaos, new worries crept in, replacing the fleeting hope inspired by the Colonel. Where would we go? Would we find safety? And in the pit of my stomach, a gnawing question lingered. Was this the end of our struggle, or merely the beginning? Finally, turning a corner, we reached a clearing, yet the view that greeted us churned my stomach. Emergency vehicles stood in disarray, and frantic people milled around, desperate for answers and closure. But within the multitude of chaos, I spotted figures I knew too well, shadowy forms flitting among the debris, whispers of conversations blending into the cacophony. "Is that?" Finn breathed beside me, and the realization swept through my veins, cold and sharp. It couldn't be. I moved forward slowly, the roar of emotion drowning out my senses, heart racing as I caught sight of what lay before me, a familiar face cutting through the haze, eyes dark and intent. My breath caught as the world spun around me, each heartbeat marking a desperate pause, and the emotions I fought so hard to cage broke free with a velocity I could hardly comprehend. There he was, someone I never thought I would see again. Lily. And in that one word, everything shifted, the love and fear coiling tightly as questions tumbled through my mind like thunderclouds, dark and roiling as the storm raged ahead. This twist was unexpected, unraveling the fabric of my fragile hope. What did it mean for us? What path lay ahead? With the jagged edges of uncertainty slicing through my heart, I stepped forward, ready to confront whatever lingered in the shadows, a revelation teetering on the brink, between love, betrayal, and the promise of what fate might still hold. The cacophony around me blurred as I stumbled into the clearing, my heart pounding like a war drum, the sight capturing my attention as though ensnared by invisible threads. Standing just a few yards away, cloaked in an aura of uncertainty, was David, his eyes a mirror of shock, disbelief, and something deeper, something that felt like a tether reaching out through the wreckage of everything we once shared. "Lily." The guttural sound of my name escaping his lips ignited a flicker of warmth, powerful and yet fearsome. It wrapped around me, pulling me closer. Was this embrace a lifeline or a weight that threatened to drag me under? I didn't know, but instinct propelled me forward, each step both cautious and eager, my pulse sinking with the dizzying rush of memories. David, I breathed in disbelief, the world around me dimming, as if we existed in our own pocket of reality amid the chaos. His presence was a jolt to my senses, a reminder of everything that had slipped through my fingers, and yet the distance between us felt insurmountable. Our history hung heavy, laced with unspoken words and unresolved ghosts. "What are you doing here?" I asked, wrestling the emotions that threatened to spill over. "I was in the area for a meeting when I saw the chaos," he explained, his voice laden with urgency. His gaze flitted from Finn to Danny, panic stirring within his of hazel depths. "I was worried you were here. I didn't know if you were safe." "All we've been trying to do is get to safety," I replied, the familiar warmth of his gaze igniting a spark of hope I wasn't prepared to handle. but it faded quickly under the weight of reality. But what are you doing here, David? You don't belong in this world anymore. He stepped closer, shadows of uncertainty dancing across his face as he struggled to compose himself. I don't know where I belong, Lily. The words hung between us, brittle and raw as they wrapped around my heart, creating a tether that was both familiar and foreign. In that moment, the world continued its blur, sirens and shouts rising and falling like a tide. But we were suspended in a moment that was raging just beneath the surface. It's not safe, I said finally, torn between the impulse to bridge our distance and the harsh realities that clashed around us. I know, he said, his voice softening, but we need to figure out how to get you three to safety. His voice trailed off, and for a fleeting second, I glimpsed the longing buried beneath his bravado. I care about you, Lily. Despite everything. Finn's tight grip on my hand reminded me that I wasn't alone, even as old wounds threatened to reopen. We need to protect Danny, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. He was glaring up at both of us, confusion mirrored in his innocent eyes. Then we find a way to get there together, David insisted, his expression shifting from grief to determination. The slice of hope was disarming, igniting a battle in my heart, a wish for us all to walk away from this together. I opened my mouth to respond, but the moment was abruptly pierced by another series of explosions, closer this time, the ground reverberating beneath our feet. Finn instinctively drew Danny closer, grounding him in the face of uncertainty, but it only deepened the chasm in my heart. I had to choose what kind of future would we have, with both fear and affection folding into one. Involuntarily, I found myself glancing back at David, looking for answers in his troubled eyes. I wanted to believe there was a place for hope amidst the rubble of our past, a reconciliation waiting to be charted away from danger. But the truth loomed closer. Danger wasn't just outside, it was stitched into the fabric of our lives, our unfulfilled dreams, and the love that frayed at the edges. Let us go. I broke the fragile silence, snapping myself out of my inner turmoil as urgency took hold once more. We can't stay here. We need to escape. I turned to Finn, gathering the remnants of resolve I could muster. Lead the way. Heads pivoted, and without hesitation, we began moving again, our small ensemble, pressed into motion. But a sense of dread swirled anew as thoughts spiraled through my mind. Could it really work? Could we forge a new beginning amidst the debris of our shared past? As we moved, I cast one last glance at David before we disappeared into the crowd. Something unspoken lingered there. A promise of what could be, or perhaps an omen of the storms yet to come. I felt the weight of our choices, the ghosts of our past entwined with the present. But as the din of chaos faded behind us, I hoped, against all odds, that this unexpected meeting was a thread we could weave into something brighter. Yet, just as we cleared the clearance, a bone-chilling scream echoed through the air, slicing like glass and freezing my heart in place. We halted, eyes widening. What had I inadvertently stepped into? Lily. David's voice was sharp, punctuated with dread as he scanned our surroundings while I held on to Danny, breathing into the chaos. And there it was, out of the depths of shadows, a figure emerged, darkly familiar, anger and sorrow contorting the features of a face once so beloved. Leave her alone. Finn yelled, stepped forward protectively, but my heart released a new torrent of fear. With every heartbeat, the tension escalated. The past was not so easily forgotten, and the threads connecting us pushed painfully taut as uncertainty gripped us tighter than ever. The air thickened with tension, every heartbeat echoing in the silence that followed the scream. David's eyes darted back to me, wide with a blend of recognition and fear. I gripped Danny tighter, shielding him as if he could somehow absorb my resolve and push back against the encroaching darkness. The figure lurking in the shadows stepped forward, the dim light revealing the fierce set of their jaw and the storm raging in their eyes. It was Clara, always the storm, always the chaos, and always my once closest friend turned ruthless adversary. The intensity of our shared history, now warped by betrayal, hung like a shroud between us. Lily, she spat, her voice low yet harsh, cutting through the air like a blade. How quaint to see you tangled in this mess. Still playing the damsel, I see. Why are you here? I managed, my words breaking like fragile glass. shards of fear slicing through the strength I desperately tried to muster. This isn't the world for you, nor for the little boy you're protecting, she sneered, throwing a pointed glance at Danny. Her derision only flared the anger bubbling inside me, a mixture of confusion and indignation. Leave him out of this, I barked back, the maternal instincts rising to the surface, daring Clara to counter my plea. Right. Defend the innocent in a world where innocence means nothing. Her voice dripped with disdain as her eyes flickered back to David. I could sense the underlying tension there, a current of unresolved emotions rippling just beneath the surface. And you, what are you doing here? Playing hero again? Can't you see it's all a losing game? This chaos will consume you. Shut up, Clara. I'm not afraid of you, David shot back, stepping protectively toward me, as if he could shield us both from the fury he knew Clara could unleash. The flicker of solidarity sent a rush of fierce hope through me, but the fear tugged at my heart with relentless pressure. You're out of your depth, David, Clara hissed, her voice sharpening like a knife. And so is she. It's time to wake up, Lily. This isn't your fairy tale. No, it's just life, I screamed, rage lifting me, igniting something in my chest that had long been dormant. You don't get to dictate our worth. I will fight for him. I will fight for us. Fight for what? A lost cause. She glanced at Finn, dismissing him, before meeting my gaze once more. You think you can save him? Save yourselves? At that moment, a sound like thunder rolled from above, but it was not the sky warning us. It was the gathering storm of choices unmade. The world felt on the brink of something vast and uncontrollable, and I was terrified of being swept away that I stepped back instinctively, Danny trembling beside me, the low whimper escaping his lips hitting me like a dagger's, a reminder of the stakes hanging over us. My eyes darted between the two, the past and the future colliding against a backdrop of chaos that thickened with every heartbeat. Suddenly, Finn's hand found mine, anchoring me as my insides twisted with uncertainty. We need to move, Lily. Now. His urgent whisper wrapped around me like a lifeline, pulling me back to clarity. Yet Clara was not done. You really believe you can escape this? You were born into the shadows, Lily. The shadows will consume you. Panic clawed its way up my throat as I brought my other hand to Danny's shoulder, squeezing gently, reassuringly. We're leaving. I turned sharply on my heel, my heart pounding, pushing past Clara as if my resolve could safeguard us from her venomous words. What? You think you can just run away? She taunted, her voice now a fractured echo behind me. And that when it happened the world expanded and contracted, stretching as I tore open space between us, the distance growing as fear propelled us forward. The path ahead was uncertain, cloaked in shadows and adorned with flickers of hope that felt dangled before me like a mirage. Suddenly, a cacophony erupted in the air, a deafening explosion reverberating just a few streets away. Screams cut through the sound of destruction, chasing the air from my lungs, propelling us all forward. But as I ran, I felt the tether to Clara snapping at my back, a promise of the past refusing to severed. It wasn't until we reached a narrow alley that would lead us away from the chaos where the weight of reality hit me again, David at my side, Finn ahead, and Danny held tightly in my arms. I could sense his small heartbeat against my chest, steady yet fragile, a stark reminder of everything I was fighting for amidst this fraught reality. Look, we need to figure out where to go next, Finn urged, glancing over his shoulder nervously. They're going to be searching for us. I paused, drawing a shaky breath as the enormity of our situation crashed around me, nearly pulling me under. Just hold on. The words were as much for me as they were for him. But then David stepped closer, his eyes searching mine. Yet in that brief connection, something shifted within me. I saw the fear reflected back, yes, but also a shared understanding of everything that had yet to be spoken. Lily, we can get through this. Together. In that moment, a flicker of hope ignited within me again, but it felt fragile. The ground trembled once more, and at that juncture of feeling both invincible and terrified, a call rang into the discordant night, sharp and urgent, shattering my brief respite. Lily. The voice echoed as shadows began to shift and swirl, morphing into something darker, something familiar but laced with danger. Mom, I whispered, the name escaping my lips as recognition struck. My heart sank as clarity washed over me. realizing that the chaos was just beginning and now, perhaps, a new kind of reckoning loomed ever closer. My body froze, a shroud of disbelief caging my thoughts. "Mom," I whispered again, my voice barely breaking through the shadows that danced around us. My heart, which had just begun to steady, turned tumultuous once more. David's expression morphed into one of disbelief, his brows furrowing as he searched my face for clarity. "Is it really her?" he asked, his voice tinged with a mix of concern and support that nearly tethered me to the moment. But the echoing call was not a mere figment of my imagination, nor a distant memory. It reverberated with a pulse of urgency that tugged relentlessly at my heart. The shadows coalesced, morphing into an area draped in both familiarity and dread. The chaos I thought was engulfing us now felt minuscule compared to the tumultuous waves spiraling behind that voice, the voice I had longed for, the voice that resonated with my childhood dreams and fears. "Yes, it's me, Lily." With trembling hands, I pulled Danny closer, shielding him instinctively as though he could somehow repel the darkness that loomed ahead. The alley seemed to grow colder, darker, until the only warmth left was the small body grasped against my chest, a reminder that hope could still blossom amid uncertainty. "Lily, please, you need to come back. It's urgent." The voice was insistent, cutting through the haze, layering our tangled past with the present, but also threatening to unravel more than I was ready to confront. "What does she want?" Finn whispered urgently, his brows knitting together with concern, still watching the shadows keenly. I couldn't discern his substrate of worry. Was it for me, or for the danger he sensed creeping ever closer? "She wants to bring me back into her world," I said. The bitter taste of resentment laced my voice. "The same world that ripped us apart. Is that even a place you should go back to?" David pressed, a hint of protectiveness shimmering in his eyes. The weight of his scrutiny felt like a shield against the gathering storm. The swirl of emotions began to drown me, fear mixed with longing, resentment infused with a flicker of nostalgia. My childhood memories flooded back, afternoons filled with laughter and the comforting scent of vanilla emanating from the kitchen, interwoven with darker threads of betrayal and abandonment. "I don't know," I admitted quietly, shaking my head as if to clear my thoughts. But the storm within raged on. Before I could process that chaotic cascade, Clara re-emerged from the shadows, her figure framed by the dim light trickling into the alley. She watched us with a smirk, the intensity of her gaze dancing over each of us like fire. "You really think she's out there to help you?" she taunted, her voice dripping with the poison of betrayal. "You've always been nothing but a pawn in her game. Open your eyes, Lily." "Shut up," I shot back, the flare of anger rising again, momentarily fortifying my resolve even as my legs trembled beneath me. "You don't know what she has been through, or what you're about to face," Clara hissed, stepping forward. "Every choice you make is a step toward your ruin. You're just prolonging the inevitable." I inhaled sharply, conflicted between the urge to flee and the desire to confront the tempest lurking beyond. "And what would you have me do, Clara? Live in fear of every shadow, paralyzed by your poisonous words?" "Fear is wisdom, Lily," she echoed, her voice morphing into a shrill whisper. "Do you think chasing after an illusion will save you from the darkness? Stop." I took a stumbling step back, each word she hissed fueling my unease. Danny turned to look up at me, confusion swirling in his eyes, and with that look, my heart cracked a little further. I couldn't let this spiral crumble now when everything was at stake. "Lily," the echoing voice beckoned again, more desperate now, threading through the chaos. "Trust me. You need to come home. We can fix this." Home. The word caught in my throat like a bitter reminder of the betrayal that had once sent echoes of laughter receding into silence. It was a home with walls built on shattered promises, yet part of me still longed for the love I once knew. "That's not what it means anymore," David interjected, frustration coloring his tone. "You can't go down that path. It's a trap." But the deeper I sunk into indecision, the more Clara's words echoed around me, slipping into spaces I thought had sealed shut. I felt threads of possibility weave through grime and despair, but was too afraid to grasp at any. "I don't know which way to turn," I admitted, guilt gnawing at the edges of my courage. A faint whisper of kindness trudged through the crumbling wall ID built around my heart, a reminder of those fleeting moments of warmth and laughter that still lingered like a ghost. "Please, Lily, for him," David urged softly, nodding toward Danny, his voice lowered yet firm. "You have to decide what's best for him." With that, the urgency of my situation began to crystallize. Not just for me, but for the tiny life that depended directly on my decisions. Just as I prepared to declare my choice, a thunderous crack echoed through the night, shattering my thoughts. A new wave of screams, raw and agonizing, rattled the air, pulling me back to the chaos outside the alley. "Move." Finn grabbed my arm, adrenaline tightening his grip as he pulled me toward the mouth of the alley. "We need to get clear now." But as I glanced back, torn between the shadows and the flickering light of hope, everything I held dear hung in the balance. "I have to know what she wants. I need to understand," I cried, desperation fueling the words spilling from my lips. Clara's eyes gleamed with the thrill of my turmoil, feeding on my conflict. "You want to know, Lily? There's a cost to knowing, and it's time to learn what it truly means to be forgotten." And just like that, the walls of certainty began to close around me again, the weight of impending choices pressing heavy against my chest as the world outside howled with fury, forcing me further into uncertainty. The storm was barely beginning, and I was standing at its eye. The shadows danced again, shifting under the tension of the moment, their edges curling like fingers inching toward me, beckoning me back into the folds of my past. The thunderous cracks of chaos outside faded into a low rumble, like an ominous heartbeat echoing through the darkness surrounding us. Anguish tightened around my chest, squeezing out my breath as whispers of possibility clawed at the edges of my consciousness that I was torn, an unwitting marionette tangled in a web of illusion and reality, love and betrayal. David's steady presence beside me felt like an anchor, but even he couldn't quell the tempest inside. My heart beat wildly, fighting against the fear and yearning for understanding warring within me. Every second I hesitated deepened the chasm of uncertainty, but the flickering light from the crevice of hope urged me to understand the pull of my mother's voice. "Lily, think." Finn's urgent whisper pierced through the haze, draping urgency around us like a cloak of shadows. "Remember what happened last time you believed in her promises? Remember where it led you?" In that moment, memories played swiftly through my mind, an unsettling montage woven from cherished laughter and naive trust, intertwined with the sharp tang of abandonment. My mother, once a beacon of warmth, had cost me everything in her pursuit of the impossible. Each agonizing moment sifted through my fingers, leaving behind a stinging sense of loss and yearning. "Don't let Clara get inside your head," David said, his voice steady yet tinged with desperation, pulling me back to the present. "You've faced so much, you can't let her poison your heart any further." But Clara's smirk remained like a scar across the landscape of my thoughts, taunting and demanding of my attention. Every ounce of resentment and bitterness she inspired made my chest ache with recognition. She had returned precisely to remind me of the wounds that had never truly healed. Then I felt that a flicker of warmth seeped through the cold, something unexpected. Danny, small and innocent, clung tight to my side, his trust in me palpable. "Mom," he whispered, "please don't go. I need you here with me." His voice was like a fragile, blooming flower, fighting to rise amid the ruins of my heart. "I want to leave you," I breathed, looking down into his tender eyes. They were full of hopes and dreams, yet untainted by the darkness swirling around us. "I promise." Understanding the weight of my choices, I turned back to the shadows, an almost gravitational pull tugging at my heart. "I need to know," I said vehemently, my resolve igniting anew. "I can't let Clara have that hold over me. I have to confront her." David stepped closer, wanting to dissuade me, but I could see the fear in his gaze, a reflection of his anxiety for me. "Lily," he began softly, but I raised a hand to silence him, feeling a strange sense of empowerment rising within. "I can't run from this," I declared, breathing deeply. "Not anymore. If I'm to break this cycle, I need the truth." As my heart raced with purpose, Clara's taunting laughter echoed in my ears, wrapping around my soul like a serpent. For every flicker of conviction growing in me, shadows danced demanding I retreat into my former self, reliving past wounds. Yet, the fierceness with which Danny clung to me ignited a flame of courage, a flame I hadn't realized had been smoldering. "Lily," Clara hissed, her voice thick with venom, "you'll regret this choice. You can never escape the repercussions of your lineage. The darkness runs too deep in your blood." I squared my shoulders, defiance lining my spine. "You think you know what lies in my blood? You only understand shadows, Clara, and I refuse to be a prisoner of your darkness any longer." With that declaration, I stepped forward into the shadow, and all consciousness fell away, leaving only the haunting voice of my mother pulsing through the darkness. "Lily, please, come to me," she pleaded from beyond the veil. Each word was a warm breeze of nostalgia that coaxed my heart into the torment of memory. The shadows surged, the air thickening with tension as I felt both entrapped and liberated. A world of painful yet cherished memories coiled around me, intermingling with clarity and rising fear that I was once more drinking from the well of my mother's desires. The cries of chaos outside intensified, the flickering light from beyond threatening to dissolve. But it was Clara's sharp laughter that jolted me back to reality, pulling me free from the enchanted grip of my mother's voice. "Welcome to the truth, Lily," Clara sneered, darkness pooling within her eyes. "You're here to find what lies beneath those veils you've built. The cost, however, is not what you imagine." Before I could respond, a blinding light erupted from deep within the shadows, illuminating Clara's figure, and I could make out something shadowy writhe at her feet. Something large, dark, and serpentine, a presence that felt both like an old friend and a solemn edict of doom. And just then, the shadows seemed to part for the slightest moment, and I caught a fleeting look of someone standing behind Clara, a figure shrouded in darkness, yet painfully familiar. My breath hitched. Was it my mother? The answer felt dreadful and inevitable. In that brief moment of light and clarity, my heart cracked open further, exposing the raw, beating core of my fears, and I was left hanging on the precipice of a cliff, nothing beneath me but shadow and uncertainty as life shifted beneath my feet. All the pieces were aligning, and I had yet to grasp their significance. The storm was swirling, and I was standing at the heart of it, knowing that the choices I made next could shatter everything I held dear. The air thrummed with a taut tension, reverberating against the walls of the moment we stood in. Every heartbeat echoed questions, uncertainties tethered to deep, abiding fears. Clara's serpentine form towered menacingly, but behind her, the shadows shifted, and the flickers of light danced around a figure that threatened to dismantle my carefully built resolve. "Lily," Clara taunted, her voice laced with mockery, "are you really willing to face the truth of your lineage? Are you prepared to bear witness to the darkness that birthed you?" Each word felt like a lash, unraveling my defenses thread by thread. I swallowed hard, not wanting to give way to her provocations. "Think, Lily." This moment what it meant. My gaze remained fixed on the figure behind Clara. The deeper the shadows swallowed it, the more my heart ached with recognition. "Mom," I whispered, but the air twisted around the syllables, distorting them and leaving the word dangling like a fragile thread. Just as quickly as it emerged, my hope threatened to evaporate into the dark emptiness surrounding us, a cruel game of revelation Clara designed with decidedly malevolent intent. The pulse of impossible hope surged amid doubt. I took a step forward. "I want to know," I asserted, summoning a courage I wasn't sure I had. "Is that really you?" "Lily, no." David's voice burst from beside me. "Don't get pulled in. You don't know what she might do." But the uncertainty swelled within me like a before storm, preparing to break. I couldn't let the past suffocate the present, nor could I retreat from the unyielding figure that bore my resemblance, yet shrouded in sorrow and regret. I knew too well how much despair had once clawed at her heart, dragging her into oblivion. "Stay back, David," I uttered, my voice trembling but resolute. "This is something I have to confront. For myself. For Danny." As if in response to my declaration, the shadows around Clara shifted, revealing more shades of the past, memories wrapped in darkness that played out like a fragmented film. I saw moments of laughter and joy, the warmth of a mother's embrace interspersed with echoes of tears and promises broken. The figure in the backdrop stepped closer to the light, illuminating familiar features that tugged insistently at my heart. My mother, Jess, her face lined with remnants of struggle. A flicker of recognition ignited a warmth within me, casting a glimmer of hope against the overwhelming weight of despair. Lily, she implored. The sound of my name trembled like a promise catching in her throat. You have to let me explain. I made those choices to protect you. You must understand I did what I thought was best. Best. I cried, the pain ripping through me like jagged glass. You left me, Mom. You shattered everything that I was, that we could have been. The silence that followed felt heavy, thick with the agony of unsaid words. Yet Jess's face shifted, revealing the heartbreak of a mother desperate to reconcile. I was scared. I thought it was the only way I could stop. Clara interjected, her voice sharp as knives, slicing through my blurry vision of connection. You're falling into the same trap. This is all a charade, a game. Don't you understand? Your mother is but a shadow of what she once was. The dark mass at her feet stirred as if echoing her sentiment, the serpentine body rippling with a whispered menace. It was alive. I could feel its presence, a pulse that thrummed in time with my own erratic heartbeat, infusing the air with its chaotic energy. Leave her out of this, I said through gritted teeth, pushing against the storm that threatened to pull me in. But the shadows writhed, drawing closer, urging me to surrender to the murky depths beneath Clara's control. And then in the recess of despair, small moments of defiance sparked within me. I glanced backward, catching sight of Danny. He stood still, his little figure a beacon of innocence caught in the storm swirling around us, a gentle reminder of the love I needed to protect. Danny, my sweet boy, I whispered, reaching instinctively for him, my heart hurting. Him toward the light. Hold on to me. I promise I will fight for you. Mom, he called back, his voice a thread connecting us through the chaos, making the distance infinitesimally smaller. Please don't let her take you away. The fear in his voice fueled my resolve, pushing the tide of uncertainty aside. Clara's laughter trembled around us, intertwining with the murmur of the shadows, their despondent whispers echoing around my heart. And as I forced my gaze back to Clara, her face contorting with malevolence, I saw something flicker behind her, deeper than the shadows, a truth I had yet to uncover. Perhaps you're right about one thing, I began, voice steady with newfound promise. The darkness does run deep. I stepped closer to Clara, the shadows curling around my limbs. But it's in that darkness I will find the light. You cannot control my heart or my past. And with every fiber of my being, I turned the surge of pained memories into a beacon of defiance, rising against the tide of despair. Yet, as the truths surged within me, I felt the ground tremble once more, shaking the very foundation on which I stood. Clara's expression shifted, and for a fleeting moment, something like fear danced across her cold features. Then came the revelation that shattered my newly forged strength. Beneath the unfurling shadows, behind Clara, I caught a glimpse of a figure I hadn't expected to see, familiar yet utterly foreign. It stood there, just enough for me to comprehend the gravity of it all, the realization that there were deeper connections tethering me to Clara than just blood and betrayal. The figure's eyes, gleaming with intent, locked onto mine, and suddenly, all hope felt suspended in the air, teetering on that fragile grasp. I staggered back, breath hitching, grappling with the knowledge that this battle was far from over, but the shadows were whispering secrets, and despair curled possessively around my heart. Just as the light flickered out, cascading us into darkness, I understood that truth was not merely revealing. It demanded a price that echoed through the chambers of my soul, and I stood on the precipice of a choice that would change everything. The world shifted beneath me, layers of shadows curling around my feet like tendrils eager to pull me into the abyss. Each heartbeat pulsed through the chaos as memories, flares of warmth laced with icy dawning realization, swirled in a cyclone of emotion. Clara's face twisted with a triumphant smirk, her shadowy presence more alive than anything I had faced before. You see, Lily, this world has no place for the lost, for those who think they can defy their past. The sharpness in her voice echoed, curling around the words like chains, pulling at the fabric of my being. And yet, beyond her cruel dichotomy, I felt my mother's shimmer woven into the darkness, flickering with a tether of hope. My heart surged, battling against the weight of despair. I forced my gaze to remain steady, feeling the warmth of Danny beside me. His small hand squeezed mine tightly, his innocent understanding balanced precariously on the edge of chaos. "Mom, please," he pleaded, innocence spilling from his lips in a desperate whisper. The sincerity of his love burned brighter than the shadows enveloping us, wrapping around my heart as I lifted my chin defiantly. "I will not succumb to your darkness, Clara," I shouted, drawing strength from the wellspring of affection surrounding me. "I will protect my son at all costs. I choose to embrace the light within me." At that moment, the shadows shifted, hair raising, darkness receding ever so slightly. I took a step forward as courage surged within, fueled by the unwavering truth of my love for Danny. Light can emerge even from the deepest darkness, for love is our most potent weapon. The darkness stirred in discontent, rippling, but I pushed against it, letting the warmth flood my heart with clarity, granting me strength. "Your love is nothing but a gossamer thread," Clara scoffed bitterly, "a fleeting illusion cast in this world. You think you can change the patterns woven before you? You're destined to become a shadow, just like your mother." Her words echoed, clawing at the uncertainty cocooning me, but I refused to let them take root. "No," I bellowed, a storm of fervor igniting within me. "I am not a shadow. I am the light for my son." All at once, in a burst of defiance, I spun to my mother's figure and felt the tears cascading down my cheeks blend with the shadows around me. "Mom, if you're really there, I need to know the truth. Help me break this cycle. I need to understand." The air hummed with tension, and the figure swayed, momentarily caught between darkness and light. Clara froze, her eyes narrowing, sensing the awakening of power coursing through me. "Reconciliation comes at a cost," Clara hissed softly, her tone suddenly dripping with a tantalizing urgency, but fear and bitterness crackled around her words. "You may think you're strong enough to confront this, but only I know the way forward. Don't let your desire blind you, Lily." But deep inside my chest, the flicker of understanding blossomed into clarity. I knew then that love didn't diminish in the absence of the one you longed for. Love thrived even in shadows, giving strength where it was thin. And all I needed to do was ignite that truth, nurturing it into a beacon capable of slicing through the layered darkness surrounding us. "I'll pay the price for my truth," I declared, staring unyieldingly into Clara's eyes. My determination surged forth with both fear and hope intertwined. "I will tear down every illusion you've built, every shadow you've cast over me. I will replace it with love, with resilience." And suddenly, sparks erupted like stars igniting the sky. Light unfurled, snaking into the corners of shadow, pulling and twisting until Clara's figure staggered under the weight. "No," she roared as tendrils of darkness fought against my growing light, but it only pushed me further, lighting the darkness like fragile fireworks bursting forth as if from deep cave shadows. With each heartbeat, threads of warmth threaded deeper into my spirit, illuminating my mother's figure from behind Clara. "Lily," she called again, yearning flooding her voice, a sound of raw love that shattered my defenses, radiating hope through suffocating fear. And with that, time itself slowed, each second expanding to allow me to bask in the warmth of the very love that had once been stripped away. "Mom, I'm here," I shouted back, my soul unfurling in the glow of recognition. Each moment spent soaked in aching memory paved a path back to everything that was pure and true, unfurling threads of connection I dared to embrace once more. "I forgive you for leaving. I forgive you for the pain." Our eyes locked through shadows and sorrow, and within that connection, I felt time weave around us, an unbreakable bond tethering me to the past, but refusing to shackle me to it. The shadows quivered with doubt as they began to scatter into the corners of the surrounding air, powerless against the burgeoning love between mother and daughter. "Stop this madness," Clara screamed, a desperate shriek that reverberated in the darkened recesses of my heart. "You're weak. You'll invite ruin into your life." But the light surged forth, billowing around like summer air warming winter's sharp chill. "I choose my love over your chains, Clara," I announced firmly, bracing myself against the fear that once held me hostage. "With love, I will break the cycle. I will not walk this path in shadows again. The darkness around us stirred, reluctant to acknowledge the growing light. My mother's figure stepped forth, illuminating the previous shadows, breathing warmth and acceptance back into the illusion, the chains dissolving as love captured all that lingered between us. Then take my hand, Lily, she whispered, her voice reassuring, filled with a sovereign calm. Step into the light, and together we shall dismantle the darkness. In that moment, with love beckoning from the light, I reached for my mother, feeling warmth radiate through our bond as fingers entwined with soft reverberations echoing between us. The shadows fell back, retreating against the light so fiercely alive, scattering like water droplets evaporating into air. Danny, come here. I beckoned urgently, watching as he stepped toward us, confusion replacing fear on his little face. My heart sang. Here was the promise of light, the embodiment of love I fought to protect. I knelt down, wrapping my arms tightly around him, cradling him against the swirling warmth encircling us. Suddenly, in that entangled embrace, love became an unstoppable force. The shadows faded away, absorbed into the tender glow of resilience, transforming every heartache, remaking every wound into vibrant color. I love you, Danny, I whispered, the words spilling over me with sincerity, an anthem for our hearts to remember, and you will never have to face this darkness. I promise. As the last remnants of shadows crumbled and dissolved into the brilliance surrounding us, I turned to embrace my mother, allowing all the fracture of the past to drift away. Together, we'll break this cycle, I affirmed, the light bursting forth in our shared victory, a blend of hopes, dreams, and promises forged anew, unfurling far into the recesses of unknown possibilities. As Clara's shadows receded into nothingness, I felt an exhilarating warmth shimmering within. And with one final breath, I stood resolute, heart glowing with the truth of our connection. This is not the end. This is but the beginning. I proclaimed, a promise lingering in the air, shimmering in the remnants of newfound light. And as the dawn approached, lighting the horizon ahead with colors I had yet to explore, I let out a breath filled with acceptance, relief swelling within me, fueling the uncertainty that still lingered. But in that moment, even as the journey stretched ahead, a soft glow lingered beneath my skin, an unwavering belief that no matter what lay ahead, I would face it not as shadows of the past, but as a force of love to carry through the shadows, lighting the way toward the brighter days in waiting. Together, I whispered, holding our hands aloft in unity, my voice steady with conviction. Together, we'll create a world of our own, one built on love and resilience, not darkness and despair. And as I looked at Danny, my mother beside him, the colors of dawn washed over us, painting our future with newfound hope. With conviction reverberating against my heart, I solidified the promise. We would shine even brighter, standing as a testament against the darkness. Tonight, all was still, and whispers of love remained anchored deep within. We would rise, unwavering in our journey toward the light, I in the embrace of morning's warmth. The echoes of a new beginning sparked a flame within, a memory of freedom to cherish, weaving a tapestry of our truths. And as we took a step forward into possibilities, I knew no matter what lay ahead, the light would always guide us home.